Hello and welcome back to Learn Linux TV, and welcome to another episode of How to Homelab. I love this series, and you guys seem to love it too, so I'm going to keep this series going for as long as I can. I love talking about this stuff. And in today's video, I want to have a conversation about Raspberry Pis. Now, we've touched on this earlier in the series, but I wanted to make sure that the Raspberry Pi gets its own dedicated video because I think that it's a crime that Raspberry Pis are often overlooked as a very awesome way to get started with Homelab. And one of the things that makes Raspberry Pis so attractive when it comes to Homelab, not just because they're cheap, it's also because they use very little power. And depending on where you live, electric rates are either very affordable or you're being robbed. I mean, I've seen the rates all over the place across the United States alone, and I know across the world it's even worse. So depending on where you live, you might find running a Xeon server, the kind that you could put in a rack, to be very cost prohibitive, whereas Raspberry Pis use about the same amount of energy as, say, charging your cell phone, which is another reason why they're very attractive. So already we see two benefits. Number one, they're cheap when it comes to, how much it costs to buy them. And they're also cheap when it comes to energy usage as well. So already we have two very good things going for the Raspberry Pi platform. Also, Linux is basically a default when it comes to Raspberry Pi. We have several distributions that we could run on the Raspberry Pi, the most popular of which is Raspberry Pi OS, which used to be named Raspbian, and now we have Ubuntu officially on the Raspberry Pi platform as well, among other distributions. So already you could choose between one of your favorite distributions that makes a version available for the Pi, and then all the commands that you are accustomed to for that distribution will work just fine. Now, the downside of Raspberry Pi is that it uses an ARM processor, and that's actually not a downside. I think that's more of a benefit. But the problem is any application you want to run on the Raspberry Pi has to be compiled for ARM CPUs. And thankfully, the majority of applications, in my experience, have already been compiled for that. So you probably shouldn't find or have any trouble finding applications that run on Raspberry Pi because the majority of the applications that you can download on your typical Linux distribution are available on the Raspberry Pi as well. For example, if you want to download Apache and run a web server, well, you can do that. Same with Nginx and so on. Many of the more popular packages are all available, so you shouldn't have any problem when it comes to software availability. That being said, there are going to be some applications that, for whatever reason, the developer just didn't make them available for the Raspberry Pi platform. And then there's going to be other use cases, such as virtualization, that just aren't a good fit for Raspberry Pis. For example, I'm not going to create a tutorial on how to set up your very own virtualization server with Raspberry Pi. Not that you can't do that, it's just not practical. You probably would want an actual hypervisor, like an actual x86 server for something like that. However, if that's not what your use case is, Raspberry Pis are great. They're very powerful. I mean, we're talking a quad-core CPU with up to 8 gigs of RAM and something that cost less than $60 US. Now, that's amazing. I mean, just think about it. Like less than 10 years ago, we would have thought that was very powerful, and it is powerful even by today's standards. And sure, it's not going to measure up to a Xeon server or anything like that, but it is great. And they're very powerful for the amount of money that you're paying. And you could just keep buying additional Raspberry Pis to improve and expand your Homelab. Or you can even set up your very own cluster, for example, a Kubernetes cluster, as I've shown you how to do in a previous video. There's all kinds of different use cases that you can use your Raspberry Pi for, and I highly recommend that it's something you keep in mind as you look into building your own Homelab. Now, I could actually end the video right here. Go buy some Raspberry Pis, set up a Homelab, have fun. But there's some important things that I want to mention, or basically some things that I've discovered, things that I want to make you guys aware of that might make it a little bit easier for you guys. Now, first of all, if you want to run containers on the Raspberry Pi platform, now I think you'll be successful because that's a very good use case, and, well, I do it. The glowing fans behind me are actually Raspberry Pi clusters, Kubernetes clusters. Again, I've gone over how to create that in a previous video. But when you want to run a container on a Raspberry Pi, the container has to be created for ARM CPUs, and most are targeting x86 CPUs, which means quite a few of the containers out there that you might want to run just won't run at all. Now, I'm going to include a link down below, which is to a website where you can go to get all kinds of things that are built for Raspberry Pi, specifically containers that are engineered to work on the Raspberry Pi. So I think the majority, if not all of the applications that you might want to run, you can actually find on that site. Basically, that website has community members and fans and very smart people that have gone through the trouble of creating container images that work on Raspberry Pi, and they have an amazing number available. So check out the link down below to linuxserver.io, because I really think you'll find a lot of value in that site. And if it's listed there and it supports ARM, then, well, you could run it as a container. But you don't actually have to run containers on the Raspberry Pi. I have a Raspberry Pi, for example, that is running a UniFi controller, SmokePing, and Nagios all on the same Pi. So you can actually have multiple things running on one Pi. You don't have to buy one Pi per service or force anything to work in a container if you don't want to use containers. But I just want to let you guys know that the option is there. You could use containers or not. Either way, even if you want to host a simple intranet website, a Nagios server, or even Plex, then Raspberry Pi could be a very good platform to do that. Now, Plex might not be the best example. Many people do use Plex on the Raspberry Pi. Now, whether or not that's going to go well for you has to do with whether or not it transcodes video or needs to, because that's going to be very CPU intensive. But if your media is actually encoded properly, you can actually have success running Plex on a Raspberry Pi, which is pretty cool. Now, as far as accessories are concerned, I've gone over a few of them on my channel, and I'll have some links below. Again, the glowing fans behind me are actually Kubernetes clusters. Each one has 4 Pis on them, and it's essentially a rack. And inside the rack, you can mount your Raspberry Pis, and you have the fan in the front that can cool them. And what I do is I use a power over Ethernet hat that basically negates the need for a power supply. So essentially, if your switch supports power over Ethernet, and you have a power over Ethernet hat attached to your Pi, just plug in the Ethernet cable, it boots right up. You don't even need to have a bunch of power cables. And for me, that's important because I don't want a bunch of cables all over the place. So a power over Ethernet hat was a very important choice for me for what I wanted to achieve. But whether or not that's something you can do, that solely depends on if you have the budget for it, because again, not everyone has a switch that provides power over Ethernet, but if you have that, it might be something that you might want to look into. And you don't have to go with the case that I went with, ones that are behind me. There's a number of cases on Amazon that are actually, Raspberry Pi tower cases or cluster cases that specialize in the ability, or giving you the ability, of having multiple Pis on one case. Now, another thing that you might want to look at is the Turing Pi. I've actually gone over the Turing Pi in a recent video, but they've actually put out a brand new version. I don't know if it's actually out yet. I'm still trying to get a hold of it for the channel, and I intend to do that. Now, the original version had some bandwidth caps that I thought made it a little difficult for people to justify. But now that we have the new compute modules, the new Raspberry Pi compute modules, we have even more options. Compute modules are a little weird because they're like Raspberry Pis on a stick of RAM, essentially. And for all intents and purposes, they are Raspberry Pis, but they don't have ports. You don't plug in a power cable or Ethernet cable to a compute module. A compute module wants to be placed inside a motherboard and slotted in. And the Turing Pi is an example of one of those motherboards where you can basically just keep adding compute modules on the same motherboard. They all share the same peripherals. For example, if you plug in an Ethernet cable, then each one of the Pis gets its own IP address because it has essentially a built-in switch. And that makes it extremely attractive, and it looks really cool because what looks like a desktop PC, essentially when you build it, is actually a cluster of Raspberry Pis inside, not just a motherboard with one CPU. And I think that actually brings everything full circle because that's an exciting platform that I think is going to take off. It essentially makes Raspberry Pi somewhat of a blade server kind of thing because you have individual servers and, one chassis, which I think is really cool. And that's definitely something that you should look into. Now, as we go through the rest of this series, I don't know how many videos in this series I'm going to do. To be honest, I don't even know if I'm ever going to stop. I might keep the series going forever. But I think what I want to do is actually get some Raspberry Pis and show you how to set up applications on them, because I think it's the perfect way for my viewers to get started, because you don't have to pay, a couple $100s for this huge server and then run up your bill. Just buy a Raspberry Pi and set up your favorite software on it, and now you have a Homelab. So in the next video, what I'm going to do is start talking about individual things that you could run on the Raspberry Pi. I don't know yet what I'm going to walk you through just yet, but I'm sure it's going to be awesome. But I wanted to create this video to give you guys my opinion on why the Raspberry Pi is an exciting platform for Homelab and why I recommend it so much. And we'll explore this again as the series continues, like I've mentioned. But until then, that's basically the video. I wanted to give you guys my thoughts on this, and I have. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video in this series, which I hope to have finished very soon. In the meantime, make sure you click that like button. Let YouTube know you want to see more content just like this. And I'll see you again real soon. Thanks for watching.